Hello, my name is Honey Badger Actual. I am here to explain to you what fast traveling in an interceptor is and how to fit for it. In fast travel in an interceptor, you're not really fit for combat at all. Again, it's one of my no combat roles where you're not going to fight anything and you're this fit is meant to not get caught, period, at all, ever, by anything. And it doesn't do that by having good tank or using E-War or any of that. It does so by warping so quickly that by the time you're in warp, they don't even realize you've already left. I'm sure you can see on screen right now, my passive alignment and warp speed is absolutely massive. My ship doesn't fully come out of cloak visually until after I've already started my warp. Now, my fitting is kind of odd. It's a cost-effective fitting, and I need to, I'm going to be, and I need to be, upgrading it as time goes on. Here we see hull inertial stabilizers. Now, they have an inertia modifier adjustment. This actually affects your mobility greatly, passively. The better one you can get, the more it affects it. Now, without these equipped, an interceptor, and I have no skills in interceptor or frigate hull or any of that, I'm strictly a destroyer and battleship pilot, I can still get a warp preparation time of 1.12 seconds and a warp speed of 6.60 AU a second. That's because hyperspatial velocity rigs are very important to fast travel. At least fast travel frigates. On bigger ships, it is useful, like on battleships and cruisers. It can be the difference between you getting to a gate before another battleship and not getting to a gate before another battleship. But really, that's not that big of a race. It isn't as important as, say, being so fast at a line and warp that you can't even be locked onto. Oh, it appears my game's froze. Or at least my engineering rigs have froze. There we go. So here we'll go hyperspatial velocity 3s. Now they do have a small mitigation, so the more of them you stack, the less effective they will be, but they generally give you an extra 0.4 AU in warp speed. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But that's actually 0.4 AU a second. When you look at large, long warps that take a long time to get from one end to the other, it cuts down your travel time in warp a lot, actually. Then if you look at your inertial, your 1.15 second, your 1.2 second align times are actually very important. But in the event that you need to fast travel even quicker, when you hop a gate, there used to be the bug where you could keep tapping your autopilot over and over and it would make you align very quickly and warp off. Well, your inertial stabilizer is the modified component of the ship that is supposed to do this. If you activate one and then you open your fitting and it doesn't load slowly like mine does, because it'll probably be deactivated before yeah, there we go. 0.69 seconds. That's less than 1 second align time. Now, what you do, the way that you would fast travel, is I actually, if I'm not AFK, away from keyboard, I will activate autopilot, and because I'm in an interceptor fast traveling, I don't really have to pay attention to gate camps. I'm actually just paying attention to my ship. As soon as I see my ship start to move even a little bit, I pop one of my inertial stabilizers. That makes your ship align pretty much instantly. You'll be in warp in seconds, and having 3 of them back to back that you can activate, since you don't need the inertial stabilization until you jump the next gate, usually at least one of them will always be on cooldown. But one of them or 2 of them will always be active, or ready to be activated. So I'm going to do a quick, just going to keep tapping it. There we go. It activates, gives me that small split second of stabilization, and I'm immediately off into warp. Now, these are useful in combat as well, somewhat, if you're trying to hold a really fast, really tight orbit around something, but they're not nearly as useful for combat as other modules, so they typically are fit to haulers, larger ships, to make them get on target faster for their warp, to line up quicker. I use them to kind of give you an instant, complete and total drop in the amount of time it takes to align to warp. The only bottleneck at this point during your travels is how quickly you can load between gate jumps. We're going to do a couple more, and then we'll call it the end of the video, because it's fairly simple process to understand. If you don't hit every single one, it's no problem. It just means that the ship warped faster than you could hit the module activation. I find this is particularly useful if I pop out of my gate-to-gate jump and I'm facing in the wrong direction, or I'm facing in some weird direction that's nowhere near where I need to be lined up to. You can just repeatedly tap it and your ship will align and warp. Like I said, just absolutely insanely fast. Well, I hope you understand the concept of fast travel interceptors now, and what they're capable of, what skill or what modules you need to fit that might be important, that'll make it all go a little quicker. The other thing you can do, and this by the way, this is with pretty much no skills whatsoever in my frigate skill tree. Here, I'll show you. Anyone who can afford an interceptor and get into the hull can do this. Frigate command. These are the ones that modify your inertial modifier, basically. The higher it is, the better your inertial modifier. And if I needed to train into these skills for fast travel, I would, but with an interceptor, you don't need to. You don't have to worry about gate camps, you don't have to worry about bubbles, and being able to get into warp in less than a second, which is faster than pretty much any ship in the game can lock onto you, you're gonna pretty much outrun every single thing. Even if they were to hop into a Dramiel and try and chase you down, they're never gonna have a chance long enough to actually lock you down. The other thing, where is it? Engine operation may be useful. Now, I don't have any skills into this either, because all it does is increase the activation time. So, since I don't need them to be active for more than less than a second, I don't need an increased activation time. If you were using inertial stabilizers to close orbit something, going very fast, then yes, this would be of great value. But you're not using inertial stabilizers to orbit something very close very fast. You're using it to get on target on a warp and get down the road as quick as you can. Anyway, this has been a quick excerpt from Honey Badger Actual on how I use my interceptor to travel between warp gates and get into Jita and out of Jita and just about everywhere else in all of space quicker than pretty much anyone else. I know plenty of people have listened to my advice on fitting their ships similarly for fast travel, And Void actually has a sapper training video series where we set up fast travel interdictor destroyers as part of our fleets to get out ahead of enemy fleets or get out ahead of our own fleet as scouts. Inertial stabilizers actually help with every hull class, but they have the most dramatic effect on large hull classes as far as alignment time goes. Now, for destroyers, a good example, and I know this one off the top of my head because I fly my destroyer all the time. My Thrasher Interdictor and my Thrasher Fleet Issue, that is fast travel setup, are both almost as fast as my Interceptor. They have maybe a 5 AU or a 5.8 AU warp speed, and they have a 1.9 second warp preparation time. That means that even a completely unskilled interceptor pilot could outrun me in one of my destroyers, but they'd have to be set up for fast travel to do so. However, it allows my destroyer to outrun most faction cruisers, pretty much all destroyers, all battleships, all haulers, any other ship that I could want to get out ahead of and put a bubble in front of or a bubble behind. I'm capable of doing it faster than a cruiser could ever hope to. Well, I hope this has been informative. You guys have a good afternoon, and I hope you enjoyed the video.